All right, not much introduction is needed for our next speaker, Kartik Hosanagar. He is actually a professor at Wharton in operations, information decision. He's a co-faculty director of AI at Wharton and also one of the co-chairs of this amazing conference. And he's going to present Designing Human AI Collaboration. Thank you.
Thanks, Mary. So, a whole research paper in 15 minutes. I don't know what the organizers are thinking. Yeah. But I'll give it a try. So, Designing Human AI Collaboration, this is joint work with Devan An, who's a professor at University of Georgia. So, recent advances in machine learning have obviously helped automate a range of tasks that were traditionally performed by humans. Despite that, we're seeing that there's a lot of interest in designing human-in-the-loop systems or human AI collaboration. There's many reasons for this. One, there are still very many tasks that are tasks such as those that involve judgment or creativity or empathy, where AI is not able to match humans. Even in situations where AI can match humans, research shows that people prefer services and products with humans in the loop rather than AI alone, especially, say, in healthcare and other settings. And also, a lot of people have been arguing about social alignment goals with AI. For example, while we need to leverage AI for productivity reasons, we also want to have human participation in work for a number of reasons. Now, while there's a lot of interest in designing human in-the-loop systems, and in fact, a number of studies have shown that human productivity goes up when they have AI support, I haven't seen a whole lot of work that has actually focused on how to design these systems. For example, what work should AI do? What work should humans do? And sometimes you see designs where certain tasks are assigned to AI, certain tasks are assigned to humans. Sometimes you see co-pilot kinds of modes where they work together and so on. And that's what we're trying to go after in this study. Specifically, we're trying to do that in the context of creative writing. Creative writing is a particularly interesting context for human AI collaboration because creative writing is a setting where humans like to actually be involved. Versus fully outsourcing the creative work to AI. And also it's a setting where human ingenuity still has a pretty important, interesting role to play. So in this study, we are basically asking, we're asking how does collaboration design affect the time to complete writing, the quality of the writing, and also the writer's satisfaction. And also we're trying to assess how this answer varies based on the skill level of the participant. To answer this question, we conducted a human subjects experiment, and this was with about 285 students in emerging technology class at Wharton. And each of these students were assigned to one of 3 treatment conditions, which I'll elaborate on in a moment. And their performance was monitored in terms of the task completion time, the quality of the writing, and their satisfaction levels as well. So in terms of the collaboration itself, the literature on creative writing breaks down creative writing into 4 main tasks: ideation, outlining, drafting, or the actual task of writing, and then editing. And for each of these, we can design different ways in which you can have AI do parts of it, humans do part of it, meaning co-pilot, or assign it to just one or the other. Many ways in which to, design these collaborations. We focus on the 3 most common approaches that we've seen in the literature. The first one, which we call human confirmation, is one where AI is doing all the work and human role is pretty much confirming AI's work, accept AI's work, or reject it by writing a new prompt and ask the AI to rewrite based on the modified prompt. For example, there's a paper by Hitsuwari et al. Where they have AI used in poetry, where they have AI write the poetry and humans reject or accept AI poetry. Another one is on essentially humans handling the high-level creative tasks, whereas AI handles the lower-level tasks that are more repetitive and more tedious. This is one, actually there's a paper, I don't know if Xueming is in this room, but he and his, I see him back there, he and his colleagues have a paper on AI use in customer service, where AI does the lower level tasks like lead generation, and humans do the higher level tasks like sales persuasion. So we do something similar here where AI does the lower level tasks like drafting and editing, and humans do the higher level creative tasks like the ideation and the outlining. And finally, you have the co-pilot format where AI and humans collaborate on all tasks, refining each other's contributions. And again, there's a study by Peng et al. Where they look at human-AI collaboration in software development, and they show that the collaboration works, increases productivity, and they use a co-pilot format. And of course, GitHub Copilot works in that fashion. And what's interesting about these three papers I mentioned is each of these papers show the value of human-AI collaboration, but the actual format of collaboration is different in these papers. Right? And so in this study, we're trying to put these different collaboration modes head to head and ask, okay, which one is really the better one to use? And obviously, this is in one context, and I'm not suggesting that this will work in every setting, but it certainly provides a first data point towards that. Okay, so how was this study run? So on day one, so we ran it over 2 days. On day one, participants come in, they fill out an initial survey where we understand individual characteristics like their writing experience, writing ability, English proficiency. We also had them do a creativity test. It wasn't the ones you described, Shai, but a related one, the divergence association task test, which has also come up with a bunch of words that are as divergent as possible. And then we have them write a short story. And a 1,000-word short story in 75 minutes. Business students writing short stories, that's a fun thing to try. And they write a short story, and then once they're done, they fill out an exit survey where they report on satisfaction with the process, the flexibility they had to achieve what they wanted to achieve, intent to reuse this process, and so on. Day two, they come back, and they're assigned to one of the 3 treatment groups that I described. To the same process where they write the story, the only difference is that they use AI and use AI in the way that is described to them within the group that they have. They also have a brief training in prompt engineering, so they know how to use various prompt engineering principles when they're doing that. And finally, they complete a similar exit survey with some additional questions about satisfaction with the AI itself. So that's the general design. So let me now jump in and quickly share our main findings that we have. So first, in terms of completion time, we have in gray day one, which is no AI, and in white day two. And what you'll see is that AI reduced the total writing time for all 3 groups quite considerably. For all of them, and this is consistent with other studies that show AI, of course, increases efficiency in completing tasks. No statistically significant differences between the 3 groups in terms of the task completion time. Furthermore, most of the gain in terms of time was in the drafting phase. So the drafting time went down quite dramatically for all the 3 groups. There are some differences between the groups in terms of each of these stages. In the interest of time, I'm not going to go into it, but one I'll quickly mention. If you look at the co-pilot format, you will see that they spend more time writing or drafting in that phase than the other 2, which makes sense because in the co-pilot, humans are actually participating in that, whereas in in the other formats, AI is doing the drafting, you're writing the prompt, so it happens faster. But the result of that is you spend less time editing because you were involved in the writing, and so the editing ends up being faster and so on. But overall, no big differences between the groups, and all 3 groups deliver efficiency gains as far as completion time is concerned. Next, we look at the quality of the work. So we have the quality of the writing assessed through peer grading and external graders. So every Story was assigned to 2 peers who were part of the experiment, and they graded this using rubric that was provided. In addition to that, 2 external graders who were not part of the experiment were also asked to grade. So here I'm going to show the results based on average across all the 4, but we've done analysis of just the peer grades and just the external grades, very similar. And if you look at what's happening on day 1 when there's no AI, the overall quality scores of the 3 groups are similar. In fact, for Copilot group, for some reason, it's slightly lower than the other 2, but there's no statistically significant difference. It just happens to be slightly lower, but these differences are not significant. On day 2, when they can use AI, what we found was that the human creativity group and the Copilot group had higher overall quality scores than the human confirmation group. And this result is true even after you account for you control for individual level characteristics such as their creativity levels, their English proficiency, writing, and so on. And what we find is that in this regression, the baseline group is the human confirmation group. The human confirmation group pretty much has AI do everything. They just confirm AI's work, accept or reject it. And their overall quality scores are lower than with human creativity group, where humans lead the creative work and AI does the lower level work like drafting and editing, and also lower than the Copilot group, where humans and AI collaborate in all 4 phases. And this is true not just for the overall quality measures, but we also had other measures such as the level of creativity of the story, interestingness of the story, the quality of the writing itself, and the coherence of the story. All of them, which I've not shown the graphs here, but the result is pretty much the same on all measures, that involving humans in the creative tasks is important to get the higher quality level of the output. Next, we looked at satisfaction of the participants, and we look at a few different measures. You have satisfaction with the process first. We looked at overall satisfaction with the process, whether they felt the process gave them enough flexibility, whether they felt the process was effective in helping them reach their goals, and whether they intend to use the process again or not. In terms of overall satisfaction, for the human confirmation group, satisfaction level post-AI versus pre-AI is nearly the same. But for the other group, we can see that they had a greater satisfaction from having AI versus not. In terms of flexibility, again, for the human confirmation group, they felt they did not have flexibility, while the other 2 groups felt they had flexibility. Whether the process was effective in helping them reach their goals or not, the human confirmation group, same level of effectiveness as not having AI, but for the other 2 groups, much higher level of effectiveness. And similarly, whether they want to use the process again or not, a big difference where the other 2 groups want to use the process again, but the first group does not. And then in terms of satisfaction with AI and just their assessment of AI, the human confirmation group indicated that AI made the greatest contribution to the final output, which is understandable because the only job they had was to accept or reject AI's work and write the prompts. So AI had the greatest contribution there. But this was the group where there was least satisfaction with the AI in terms of AI satisfaction, as well as whether they felt the AI was effective or not. And so first of all, in terms of what we find here, all of the findings are pretty much pointing to 2 main things. One is that the collaboration design matters, and there are differences based on collaboration design. And in particular, human participation in the creative process is important to both quality of the output and satisfaction of the writer. Next, we were trying to see whether there are differences based on writer skill levels. So we looked at writer skill levels in 2 ways. The first is that one advantage of our study is we have both within subject and across subject data. And so we can use, I've obviously shown you both the within subject and across subject kind of analysis so far, but we have their day 1 writing scores, which is an indicator of their skill level, and that is one measure we have. And the other measure we have of their skill level is the creativity test score itself. The results are similar. I'll just show you the results with the DAT test score as a measure of their skill level. So if you look at the DAT as a measure of skill level, in red over here, I have their overall quality on day one. And this is for people with low DAT scores, high DAT scores, and the people who came up with the DAT measure said that most people fall in the 74 to 82 range. And that's our average group. I've taken this test too, and I think I fall in the average group too. So I was very disappointed to learn that, but you live with it. And what you see is on day one without AI, as you expect, people with higher creativity scores produce stories of higher overall quality. Not surprising. It means that the DAT measure is measuring something meaningful. But on day two, when they have AI support, there is actually no meaningful difference in terms of the overall quality. And this is across all three AI groups pooled together that we see that the average quality is more or less the same. This is the same as multiple studies that have reported that AI helps bridge the gap between high-skilled and low-skilled workers, and low-skilled workers raise their performance with AI. Now, we can break this analysis down by treatment group and look at what it looks like. And again, we find that the co-pilot group and the human creativity group have similar patterns, but the human confirmation group has a slightly different pattern. And specifically, the pattern we see in the human confirmation group is that while low-skilled writers do benefit from AI, if you look at average and high-skilled writers, compared to the other groups, it feels like they are not benefiting from this group. And so if we're talking about low-skilled workers, then maybe human confirmation is not so bad, meaning that outsourcing even the creative work to AI actually may produce higher quality output from them. But it's the high-skilled workers, when you don't involve them, that their performance drops. In other words, not only are we finding that collaboration design matters, that it also interacts with the skill level of the people, and that you might want to design the collaboration differently based on the skill level of the participants. So one last thing I'll mention is we also had qualitative feedback from all the participants. 195 of them submitted feedback, which was just open-ended essay-type feedback on their reactions to what worked well, what didn't. And we could run a natural language analysis on this. So we essentially identified all the positive topics and all the negative topics, and every comment from every participant was assigned to 0, 1, or more of these topics based on the textual content of it. I won't go into the details, but what did they find was the value of AI? The most talked about value was efficiency and time saving, followed by idea generation. The third is structure and assistance with the outline. The fourth is grammar and language improvement. And the fifth is overcoming the writer's block. And in terms of what did they not like about AI, it's being able to capture emotional depth and authenticity, capture my personal writing style, difficulty in following complex instructions, difficult with specific editing needs, and very cliched and predictable kind of content versus when a more sophisticated advanced writer wants to take it in different areas. And of course, this is all, and the numbers here are the number of people who said that this is through that classification of comments into these topics. So that's basically our main finding. Creative role exclusion of high-skilled workers is costly, but for low-skilled workers, it could work out. Collaboration design matters, and why did we find performance and satisfaction decrease? There's a lack of novelty. That is one of the ideas that a lot of people mentioned in terms of the AI ideas. They also felt frustration about not being able to participate. And as we tried to make sense of it, we actually administered the DAT test on ChatGPT itself. And so what we have here is, in yellow is the broader population. So the people who created the DAT test said the average DAT score in the population is about 78. We administered the DAT test on our participants. So these are students at Wharton. Theirs is 82.2. And we administered the test on ChatGPT multiple times, and ChatGPT's average was about 85.7. So ChatGPT has a higher average score than most of the participants, and that's why it's actually able to deliver value for all of them and help out, and AI can create a lot of value. However, this is the distribution of DAT scores for our participants, and there are students that are at the high end, and if they give up the creative control, it might actually hurt them, is basically how we are interpreting this result. There are some interesting ideas about what this means for AI design itself, right? For example, AI that could be more personalized, that can respond to individual writing preferences, that can respond to emotional resonance, I think of these systems are missing. These are some of the ideas that also emerge from that. So I know I'm out of town. I'll take questions. Fortunately, I get to wrap up as well, so I'll borrow some time from there.
All right, first question. Thank you, Kartik. I'm curious about the long-term effect. Are users going to get used to using AI or ChatGPT and their creativity drop in the future time? Or are they going to learn from ChatGPT, become more proficient in writing?
That's a great question. Obviously, our study cannot answer that. My startup actually does some AI in creative spaces, but we don't do writing, we do evaluation, we do what Leonard was doing, which is screening of scripts that come in and so on. But I think both the possibilities you mentioned are certainly theoretically in the realm of possibilities, but I honestly don't know which one will play out. So it's a great research question. Maybe you should look into that.
Leaning on the first speaker that we had in the session and trying to find out what were the nature of the stories. People using the AI, did they write meaner stories, really negative stories?
Great question. I should look into I read a few of these stories, and what I would say is that on day one, a lot of the stories just resembled their personal experience. A lot of the stories tend to be life of a student and things happen and so on. Whereas in day two, you start to see some, stories that aren't, okay, this is a student at a campus writing a story. So I think that's one aspect that I noticed, and I'm saying that anecdotally. But you bring up something that is actually a little more interesting, which is analyze the text to figure out genres, subgenres, and map out. So that's a great thing that we'll do right away.
All right, I think that's all the time we have for questions, and we'll let you close it up.
Okay, and so one thing I should say before I close out, I want to thank Angeline, who's right here in the first row. She was one of the students who actually helped rate all these stories. So I said external graders, so 200 plus stories to rate. So, and as I said, these are business students writing creative stories. These are not actual writers. So I'm sure some of them are painful to read. But so thank you for that, Angeline, and thanks for joining. And I guess finally to conclude, I guess there's not a whole lot I want to say beyond, it's such a great thrill that, we just tried this as an experiment last year. There was a lot of interest, and we decided let's renew it. And we had so many submissions, we said let's make it 2 days instead of 1 day. And so thank you all for taking all of the trouble. For me personally, what was extremely enjoyable was we had 2 days of papers that are on such a closely related topic, so we could go much deeper into it versus the usual conference in IS or marketing where you're like, papers, one healthcare and the next is e-commerce and the third is something else. So I thought that was a lot of fun. We would love your feedback, so if you want changes for future years, we would love those kinds of ideas. I know we have to wrap up in 3 minutes, so if you're going to give me feedback, I'll take one, but I'm not going to do it live right now, but any feedback, whether it's in the hallways or email, that would be great. Yes, please.
These presentations are so quick, so fast, and how impact the data. Any way we can get copies of the
Yes, that was, I'm going to make a few of those announcements, but you remind me of the first one. All of the presentations were recorded. So we will have, so thank you for 2 days of diligent recording of all these sessions. And thank you to our staff also making sure questions were also recorded and all of that with the mics. So you will not only have the PowerPoint presentations, but you'll also have the video recording. So we'll be sending a post-conference email to all participants with PowerPoints and the video recordings. I hope nobody has an issue with your presentations being shared with, because anyway people saw those presentations, so it's just going to them. But if they did, if anyone has a concern, then they've already communicated, so you're already aware of it.
Some that may not be shared because the presenters did not want them shared. But
Okay.
all that have been agreed to be shared will be shared. Are you sharing the PPT or the PDF? We're going to probably share it PDF.
Can we have an AI summary, an AI score, and an AI rank?
I think the next year's conference is going to be, each of us writes the paper with AI. We will evaluate the papers with AI. You can send your AI digital twin to present. I'll send my AI digital twin to attend. So that's next year's conference. But on a more serious note, we will be doing this every year. We would love it if you guys come back next year. Please send your work next year. Please come and attend. And any other closing remarks, Mary, in terms of event next steps?
We're going to send an email, and they'll, so the talks will not be available immediately. We need a little bit of time, so be patient, and they will be on our website most likely, but we'll send you a subsequent email with that. Also, we are trying to have 2 conferences, this one here in San Francisco, Gen AI, and like we had one last year in May, this previous year, on future of work. And we are right now scheduled to plan to have a future of work, Generative AI Future of Work conference in May, and that information will be coming as well. We will contact some of you to participants in our AI Horizons webinar, but that will be forthcoming as well.
And the only other thing I'll say is you'll also get an email immediately asking you to participate in the survey. And we hope that you'll all participate to make this an even better conference in May and September.
Yeah, and that survey is for the feedback that I was requesting. And I guess the final note is I just want to thank all the staff who were so organized with chasing down presentations and the lunch and the meals and everything else.